I started my new job at Will Rogers Airport. I say new job, but I was really just moved to a different airline and working on the same ramp agent position. Now, I have to tell you that I have a crippling fear of heights, and my least favorite part of being a ramp agent is when I have to climb in a cargo bin or rear-loading plane, because it's about 20 feet above the ground. The first thing is, it was raining, not just light raining, but pouring rain with a few scattered lightning flashes and random power surges every now and then. We have dead bodies transported into cargo bins. This was one of those occasions, and tonight was my lucky night, apparently, because my manager told me I was throwing this plane. Throwing me, I was pulling the cargo out of the bin. It was the last plane for the night, and wasn't very much cargo besides the body. My coworker, John, pulled the ramp loader to the plane and raised it up so I could walk up to the conveyor belt to enter the bin. About 4 other coworkers came over with a baggage tug for the cargo. I said to everyone, in a louder than normal tone because the rain was loudly smacking the metal shell of the airplane, I hope you all are ready. I'm not trying to be out here all night. John laughed and said, "Don't worry about it. Maybe you can find a new friend in there." In reference to the bodies. I didn't think it was funny, but I chuckled and told him to shut up and let's get going. I climbed into the small and cramped space and sat in the bin, as far from the human-sized white cardboard box as I could, and pulled my phone out of my pocket to select the playlist to listen to while I threw the bin. I found the bin and started working. The conveyor belt moves at a snail's pace, and you have to wait until they scan each individual package. So I can't just throw them as fast as I want to get out of there. About 10 minutes into it, I was getting closer and closer to this box, and my music stopped playing. I've had earbuds that short out when they get wet, so in the front of my mind, I automatically assumed that the rain somehow got on it, and I just needed to shake the little water out of them. But they were bone dry. I checked Spotify to see if it was a glitch or a problem with the app, and I saw I had an unread text. Did I get a notification and forget in the midst of my rapid-fire baggage handling? The way my phone is set up, when I get a message, it will tell you who it is from, but it won't display the message. You have to access them and read it. The message was from an unknown number, which was odd, because very few people have my number. I clicked the notification, and I read the message. All it said was, "Hi." I sent a text back and said, "Oh, who is this?" My phone displayed that whoever sent the message saw mine immediately after it sent. I waited, no response. I started my playlist back up and got back to my job. Shortly after, a crash of thunder so loud the plane shook made me jump at first, but I quickly rationalized it and returned to work. I noticed the conveyor belt was no longer moving. I yelled to John, "What the hell is going on up there? Why did it stop?" He told me, "Sit tight, they're gonna drop off this load." I thought to myself, where else am I gonna go? About 1 minute later, it got cold. Like I could see my breath cold. I wrote it off as just a cold front. I reached over for some stranger's luggage to lean on while I waited. As I looked over for a bag to grab, lightning went across the sky, and I saw a quick flash. A little boy, 11, maybe 12 years old, sitting on a white box, staring at me with this eerily happy smile, and his head turned slightly to the side. My heart sunk, and I froze, never taking my eyes off that box for what felt like hours. I was startled by the replacement conveyor belt starting up right next to the plane. I darted to the moving conveyor, crawling as fast as I could, trying to keep my balance and panic at the same time. I hit the ground, looked at John and said, "Nope, I'm done. You're gonna have to go in there." I didn't want to explain exactly what I saw, but John knew something scared me, so he asked me what was wrong and who was it. I stuttered a little bit, then walked away before I could see anything. Then I got a new text message notification that I heard loud and clear this time. It responded from the unknown sender saying, "It's your new friend. This incident took place in my old house in the winter of 2013. Me, being 12 years old, my mom had gone on a vacation to visit her friend in Bakersfield, California, leaving us home alone. My sister Aurora, who was the oldest at 21, would be watching us, as well as my brother Austin, 19. Back then, Austin and Aurora had come back from the local gas station to grab some snacks, hot dogs, hamburgers, slushies, candy and chips. Austin also got a pizza from Little Caesars, as we were going to watch a football game that night. It was December 15th, 2013, when it was pitch black out. The game being either the third or fourth quarter. Even over the commentator and the loud sound coming from the TV, we could hear a faint yet very slight scratching sound coming from the garage. It sounded like our cats were scratching the wood in the garage, or maybe one of the dogs. Addison, my little sister, was looking around for the dogs and cats when she found them all in the basement, resting in either our billet room or the 2 bedrooms we had down there. Addison came upstairs and told us, and we were pretty reasonably shaken. The scratching continued, and it only made us feel more unsettled. Austin and Aurora looked pretty shaken when we heard a loud collapsing sound in the garage. It sounded like someone climbed up the ladder to our storage area, went through all of our boxes, and shuffled them around. That's when it hit us. Bailey, my other sister, turned off the TV, while Ali, another one of my sisters, went to go turn off the lights. Addison hid in one of my basement bedrooms. Ali hid behind the china cabinet in our other basement bedroom. I was hiding under my bed. Aurora and Bailey were hiding behind my parents' bed. Then someone opened the door to our house and slammed it shut. It was a man. The man said in a rough voice, walking into the bedrooms, "Aurora, Austin, Ali, Bailey, Elijah, Addison, I would like to give you some candy." He also said our full names at one point, and somehow knew our middle names. The man started pounding on the 3-bedroom doors and screaming that he had a bunch of candy canes and he just wanted to spread Christmas cheer. Austin jumped on the man from behind. He actually had a huge kitchen knife. Austin managed to stop him from stabbing or cutting him. The cops arrived a minute later, and the man was still in Austin's possession. But Austin had left him for maybe 20 seconds, and when he went back into the hallway, the man was gone. We heard the front door shut, and Austin never caught the guy. Unfortunately, the story doesn't even end yet. One day, when I was 15, I was walking home from school with Addison and Bailey. By then, Aurora, Austin, and Ali had all moved out. I opened the front door to see everything shifted around, and the whole house was trashed. We found this incredibly odd, and even more disturbing was the terrible foul smell coming from our basement. 5 of our dogs, Rocky, Roscoe, PT, Coco, and Bingo, were all clawing at the basement door. I opened the door. Since Rocky, Coco, and Bingo were all German shepherds, they weren't scared, while PT and Roscoe, who were golden retrievers, were petrified. Rocky went down first. He was acting very brave, then looked in the basement bedrooms and started barking. Our basement bedrooms are like this. One is off in the billet room, and there's a door at the back of the room leading to another basement bedroom. One was our guest room office, and the other was a storage room that was formerly our playroom. But Rocky was barking into our storage room. Bailey and Addison were upstairs, cowering, while me and Rocky were downstairs in the storage room, scavenging around. I turned on the fan and the light. Then I heard, "Elijah, come down here, please." I jumped. The man from that one night in December stood up with a knife. Rocky pinned the guy to the floor, biting him profusely. I screamed for Addison or Bailey to call the cops. They arrived in 5 minutes while Rocky was still on top of the man. He was arrested and had been responsible for several crimes. I had forgotten about both incidents for a while. We actually moved out of that house a few days ago, which was June 11th, 2020. When we were looking at the house for one last look, Bailey looked at the wall behind the china cabinet in the guest room and screamed. There was old carved blood into the wall that said, "I will come back." I will forever be grateful toward Rocky and Austin, both saving our lives. Coco, unfortunately, died in August 2017 due to lymphoma. This incident will forever haunt me, and I hope we never see that man again. He was sentenced to 12 years.
I grew up in a post-Columbine world where lockdowns were stitched into the fabric of school life the same way fire drills had been for my parents. They were constant, hovering over everything we did, an unspoken reminder that safety was never guaranteed. By the time I hit high school, the sharp buzz of the intercom announcing a lockdown hardly made me flinch. We all knew the drill. Teachers locking the doors, shades drawn, lights snapped off in an instant, chairs scraping against linoleum as we crouched in corners, breathing shallowly, pretending our bodies could melt into the walls. At first, when I was younger, every drill spiked terror in me. But after a while, they became as mechanical as taking attendance. Still, even when it felt routine, there was always the quiet understanding that the world outside those classroom walls was unpredictable. The uncertainty lingered like static in the air. You never really knew. That morning in 11th grade started the same way as any other, though I was running later than usual. I had spilled coffee down the front of my shirt. Clumsy, half-awake me, and darted into the bathroom to scrub the stain away. The scent of disinfectant clung to the white tiles as I stood at the sink, dabbing furiously at the spreading brown blotch with a rough paper towel. The mirror reflected a face flushed with annoyance and embarrassment, strands of hair sticking up where I'd rushed through brushing. I was still muttering under my breath when the intercom above me crackled, a scratchy burst of sound that made me jump. Lockdown, 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 4 times. Always 4, my breath caught in my throat. It wasn't the words themselves, they were familiar enough, but the tone, the clipped urgency in the secretary's voice. My stomach dropped cold. For one suspended second, I simply stared at the wall, the tile squares blurring together as if my brain couldn't process the moment. Then I snapped back, heart suddenly hammering, and yanked the bathroom door open. The hallway stretched ahead of me, eerily empty. Just minutes ago, it had been bustling with voices, footsteps, the slam of lockers. Now it looked like a photograph of itself, frozen and lifeless. Every classroom door was already shut tight, shades drawn, the silence unnerving in its completeness. Down the stairwell, I thought I caught a noise, raised voices, maybe a shout carried upward, but I couldn't be sure. My pulse spiked so hard it felt like it was trying to tear out of my chest. Instinct kicked in. Without thinking, I slipped back into the bathroom. The space suddenly felt cavernous, sound bouncing too sharply off the walls. My sneakers squeaked faintly on the tile as I hurried to the last stall, the farthest from the door, and eased myself inside. The metal lock hovered under my hand, but I hesitated. If I clicked it shut, it would be obvious, too obvious, that someone was hiding. I left it unlatched, my hand shaking as I climbed onto the toilet seat, pressing my body against the stall wall as though I could sink right through it. My breathing came too fast, too loud in my own ears. I forced myself to hold still, to quiet, to make myself as small and invisible as possible. The silence dragged on. My mind raced through possibilities. Maybe it was just a drill. Maybe a precaution for something minor happening down the street. Maybe I had only imagined the sharpness in the secretary's voice, the edge that didn't belong to routine. I wanted to believe it. I almost convinced myself it was nothing, until the sound came. Footsteps, slow, measured. Each one distinct, striking the tiled floor like a metronome, echoing louder as they drew closer. I froze, breath lodged painfully in my chest. My body screamed at me to move, to do something, but all I could do was press myself tighter against the wall, every muscle rigid. The bathroom door creaked open with agonizing slowness. For a moment, the only thing I could hear was the pounding of my pulse in my ears, so loud it almost drowned everything else out. Then another sound slipped through, the faint rhythm of breathing. Not mine. Too steady, too deliberate. I clenched my jaw to keep my own from breaking into gasps. The first stall door screeched as it swung open, then slammed shut with a metallic bang that ricocheted through the tiled room. My whole body jolted. Then another stall and another, each opening and slamming in turn, the rhythm methodical and terrifying. My legs trembled, struggling to hold me balanced on the narrow porcelain rim of the toilet seat. Sweat slid cold down my spine. When the intruder reached the stall beside mine, something changed. The smell hit first, an earthy scent, damp and raw, like soil after rain. Mud, maybe, or wet grass clinging to heavy boots. It was so out of place in the sterile bathroom that my throat clenched involuntarily. Whoever it was had come in from outside. My mind screamed with questions. Who? Why? What were they carrying? But my body refused to let me move. Even to blink. The handle to my stall rattled. The metal jiggled softly, insistently. But the door didn't swing open. It lingered there, quivering in someone's grasp, as if they were testing it, weighing whether or not to push. My eyes flicked down against my will to the tiny crack between door and frame. A sliver of shadow shifted there, human-shaped, breathing-shaped, inches away from me. I dug my nails into the stall wall, forcing my lungs to stop moving, praying for invisibility. Time distorted. I don't know how long I stood frozen, suspended in dread, waiting for the door to explode open. Every second stretched, endless and suffocating. My vision tunneled until all I could see was that strip of shadow, that movement just beyond reach. And then, the intercom crackled again, startling in the oppressive silence. Lockdown is now complete. Thank you for your cooperation. The words, wrote and practiced, poured into the bathroom like light through a crack in a door. Relief surged in me, but it tangled with confusion, disbelief. Complete? Cooperation? My eyes darted back to the stall door. On the other side, the shadow shifted. The handle stilled. Slowly, deliberately, the footsteps began retreating. Each one echoed softer, farther, until the bathroom door shut with a quiet click. Then, nothing. Silence. I didn't move. Couldn't. I remained perched on the toilet, every muscle locked in place, until pins and needles crawled up my legs, until the threat of collapse outweighed the terror of moving. Only then did I climb down, my knees buckling slightly under me. My reflection in the metal stall door looked pale, eyes wide and wild, shirt still damp from the coffee stain I'd almost forgotten about. When I finally pushed the stall open, the bathroom looked exactly as it had before. Silent, ordinary, empty. For a heartbeat, I wondered if I had imagined everything, if my mind had spiraled during what really was just a drill. But then I saw them, near the sink, faint on the glossy tiles, a trail of wet boot prints leading out the door. Each print darkened by mud, the edges smudged but distinct. My stomach lurched. I followed them with my eyes until they vanished into the hallway beyond. That was when I noticed the paper. It lay half hidden beneath my stall door, pressed into the dust along the edge of the tile. A scrap, torn unevenly, its edges ragged. My fingers trembled as I bent to pick it up, dread already coiling tight in my gut. The handwriting across it was shaky, letters jagged like they had been carved more than written. 3 words, simple and devastating. I saw you. The world seemed to tilt, everything narrowing down to that scrap of paper in my hand. My breath came shallow, ragged, my mind unable to wrap itself around the reality of it. Whoever had been in the bathroom hadn't just stumbled in during the drill. They had known. They had looked. They had chosen to leave me a message. I stumbled backward, the paper fluttering in my grip. My thoughts scrambled for explanations. A cruel prank, someone messing around. Maybe another student who had been locked out and decided to scare me. But the memory of that earthy smell, of the rattling handle, of the shadow hovering inches from me, none of it felt like a joke. It felt deliberate. It felt dangerous. The hallway outside had begun to stir again, the muffled sound of doors opening, teachers releasing their classes, students whispering and laughing nervously about the lockdown. Life sliding back to normal. I gripped the paper tighter, shoving it into my pocket before stepping out, forcing my face into a mask of calm. But inside, every nerve screamed. The boot prints were fading quickly as feet scuffed over them, but I could still see enough to know they had been real. I swallowed hard, the taste of fear bitter in my mouth. All day I kept reaching into my pocket, fingertips brushing the scrap, as though confirming it hadn't vanished. Words swirled in my head, questions with no answers. Who had been in the bathroom with me? Why had they been there during a lockdown? Why leave that note? And most of all, had they really seen me hidden in that last stall, holding my breath and praying not to exist? By the time the final bell rang, exhaustion weighed me down more than my backpack ever could. I moved through the halls on autopilot, eyes scanning every face, every set of shoes searching for mud, for shadows, for someone who might have written those words. But everyone looked the same as always, voices bright with gossip about the drill, laughter echoing off the lockers. I forced myself to join in just enough to keep from standing out, though my throat was too tight to manage more than a few words. That night, in the silence of my room, I pulled the note from my pocket and smoothed it flat on my desk. The words stared back, relentless in their simplicity. I ran my fingers over the jagged ink until my hands shook too much to keep still. Sleep never came easily after that. Every creak of the house, every shift of shadows outside my window, every echo of footsteps in the hallway. I heard them all. And always, in the back of my mind, the whisper of those words, "I saw you.